0685-617.
We say to America is be true to what you said on paper.
I wish that I could freely dream and be judged from within, hunted by a power that cannot see past my skin. My views are viewed as ignorant, my truth always denied. My history is shrouded in a spider web of lies. Isn't this America? Or is this America all a lie?
Of the freedom of speech, somewhere I read. Of the freedom of press, somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right.
How can I pledge allegiance to a country built on lies? Or raise my children to believe they're equal in its eyes? My leaders are assassinated for speaking their mind. So justice never tilts my way. I thought that she was blind. Isn't this America? Or is this America all a lie?
Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop.
Good day. I am Denise DePina-Reed, co-host of At the Round Table with MAMLEO, a Massachusetts Association Minority Law Enforcement Officers Incorporated broadcast, and we greatly appreciate our sponsors, John B. Cruz Construction Company, 1 John Elliott Square, Roxbury, Massachusetts.
I'm your host, Larry Elson, in studio with my brothers from another. To my right there, Mr. Rose is coming all the way from
Sharon,
yeah.
Sharon, Mass.
Oh man, out there with the rich folks, man.
Well, next door to Larry,
why you want to throw me in your mess?
He's out there.
Why you want to don't blame me. Right?
I was out there one day. I was gonna play golf at Stony Brook or Brook Meadows or someplace out there, and I was like, well, it's in Sharon, and the only people that out there are people like Pete Rose, and I mean those baseball players, Jim Rice. I was like, man, come on, man, I was just want to play around a golf. Dog.
Well, it's funny because he only allows me. I can only sneak in off the line. Like I can go to that Shaw's right there at the end, and there's a little farm there that I sneak in and get my kids some ice cream. But that's as far as it's like. There's a toll if you go another 100 feet. So I literally can put my toe in. In the
so you have to make a certain amount of money and be a member of a certain club to be in.
Well, I think they frame it like this: you can't go any further into the town that you can't see the sign when you enter. It says entering Sharon, so I can always see the sign from wherever I am.
Sharon, well, I live in Randolph. All the suburban black folks.
Yeah, it is. Actually, that's where the majority of the family lives. I'm like, man, No, it would make it a lot easier if we all kind of lived in one neighborhood.
Well, if you help them out financially, you know, Sharon is not a cheap town to live in.
It's not, but you know what? I wouldn't mind like finding a nice place in Randolph to live.
You could do well if you sell out Sharon.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so poor I can't pay attention.
You got to go outside to change.
I'm serious, man.
All right,
that's how poor I am.
We want to thank our sponsor, Guarantee Rate Mortgage Company. For all your mortgage needs, get branch manager Cora Holbrook. Call at area code 781-342-0252. Guarantee Mortgage located at 75 State Street in downtown Boston, Mass. Guarantee Rate Mortgage Company, guaranteed to exceed your expectation. Also, a reminder, Pathways to Reentry Conference. Save the date, October 28th. That's next week, folks, from 9 to 2 p.m. It'll be held at the Northeastern University Curry Student Center at 360 Huntington Ave, Boston, Mass. 02115. Also, a reminder, the New Bethel Baptist Church Women's Only Conference will be held October 27th through the 29th at 11 Beach Street in Framingham, Mass. 01702. For more information, contact First Lady Vernice Jones at area code 617-275-9501. So we'll get into a little bit more politics in this hour. An interesting article Pastor Hobbs sent me in saying that the mayor has declared, if I'm not mistaken, that she's going to run for re-election, or I think that's maybe to get folks off her back, as the question keeps wandering as whether or not she's going to Cambridge. But interesting, in the Dorchester Reporter this week, it says the Democrat Party is running on empty. I am the co-chair of the Ward 15 Democratic Party Committee. We fashion ourselves progressive, diverse, active, and passionate about politics. It's from this insider perspective that I am looking at the party with a critical eye, and my conclusion is that it's virtually an empty shell, that many sincere Democrats are political ostriches with their heads buried in the sand. Two recent articles have highlighted an ongoing alarm of mine about the state of the Democratic Party, especially in Massachusetts. Reporter Matt Stout recently wrote in a piece in the Boston Globe in which, among other things, he divulged that the percentage of voters in Massachusetts who registered as Democrats fell from 49% in 1990 to 29% today. Independents are on the actual majority. Welcome, Dr. Bradley. At 61% of registered voters, with Republicans at 9%. Further, Stouts points out roughly 554,000 people have registered to vote since 2020, all as independents. Yet the Bay State is often considered the bluest of blue states, meaning the most democratic in the U.S. The divergence between appearances and percentages arise from the supermajority of elected officials with a D attached to their name, all statewide offices, supermajorities in legislation, as well as among county sheriffs, district attorneys. The conclusion: voters in Massachusetts lean left ideologically, but not because of affinity to the Democratic Party organization. And it goes on, we'll get into it. But it speaks to the conversations we've had, right? That Dr. Bradley, in Rhodes, there's been some conversion, right? Is that why put yourself in a category when neither side represents you? As an independent, you have options. You can, it's like you would not go to a restaurant and have them hand you the kids menu and say you don't get a chance to look at the whole list, right? And I think when you put yourself in one category, you're basically saying my selection is limited to.
Well, first of all, I do thank you for opening my eyes up on being an independent. I am that. Although I still think, as a black person, I'm still nestled between two parties that really doesn't care about me.
Right.
You know, as it relates to what I'm going through.
Right.
You know, so they tend not to produce policies and practices that will address my need, recognize me as a black person with full citizenship in this country. Because institutions are still designed to, not with me not in mind.
Right.
You know, so I think if for people of color, we need a third party that's going to actually address the issues that are concerning us as relates to getting full dignity and citizenship in this country.
So with that said, and Rose, feel free, you know, first of all, you know, this is why we try to educate and inform, right? Is the article also alludes to that the vast majority still see this as a blue state, and I see it as an independent state. But again, I look at that menu analogy, right? There's not much of a selection there, right? Because if you're a Republican in this state, unless you're in a very conservative western part of the state where, you know, they probably don't even have street lights, it's unlikely you're going to get elected. There's very few people like, you know, but we have had, like Charlie Baker has been elected, reelected twice.
Different kind of Republican,
exactly.
though. Yeah.
Mitt Romney was elected here. Yeah. Bill Weld. So we've had Republican governors here in the state, but your politics it can't be this crazy radical agenda that you want to push on people, and that should be the norm for regardless to what party you're affiliated. And like I said, I recommend people be independent, because then folks have to work for your vote, right? When this says that 61% of the people in Massachusetts now identify as independent, that should say that there is an opportunity for maybe someone who runs as an independent candidate as an option from a D or an R, because the vast majority of the people don't identify with either party. in which people consider as a blue state. How do we rectify that?
Well, I don't think it's about. I think the independent way to go is the best way, in my opinion. Because I do think that, for instance, the Republic. I think the Democratic Party has taken the black vote for granted. There's no question about that. And at one point, when you look at the history, it was the Democratic Party that pushed for. Secession from the Union, slavery, and all those other things. It was a Democratic Party. That history is done and gone. It was a shift. It's changed.
Flip of the coin or something.
So it is what it is. But I think if you're totally subscribing to the ideology of one particular party, then you're not allowing yourself to actually think outside of the box.
So then, gentlemen, help me out here, because according to this article, 61% of the people identify as independent. But realistically, if you run as an independent, even here in Massachusetts, with those numbers, you're most likely not going to get probably even more votes than a Republican. So how is it that people identify that, but they don't vote as that? And there's no party running as an independent.
Party loyalty, monkey see, monkey do. They're used to it.
I get, but I guess my question I'm trying to get from folk is the numbers. Say right here,
they say they're independent, but they will.
But they're still voting
vote
in the deep.
The way that they're supposed to, or the way that they want to vote. But earlier, when I was listening to you guys while I wasn't here, it is very scary how many people are still supporting Trump. Okay, and people are looking and blaming this administration for what's going on in their 401k right now. And they're saying, oh, that's what's going on at the border. All these things that are going on, where the previous administration was a catalyst to where we are right now. But yet they're just saying they're willing to squarely put the blame on this administration.
Well, I think Trump, when he passed that, got that massive tax cut for his rich friends. He called them and said, "Hey, I just took care of you." But again, I want to go back to that. So if what you're saying is true, and I'm not saying as far as people just kind of blindly, then it really makes no sense when you have 61% of people who are registered as independents. But yet, again, if I run as an independent, I'm less likely to be elected. What are we doing here, folks? What's the encouragement for?
Do you know how much money it takes to run? So even if you run as an independent, it's like it's just to run for Senate or any local seat, it takes a few $1 million.
No, I'm not disputing that. I guess again, I'm going back to try to help me and our listening audience to understand that
those are the choices you're given. Like if you're gonna vote, even if you do have an independent, that person, the Green Party, the Libertarian Party, their voices.
But those are kind of no, they're not. But these numbers support an independent candidate.
Absolutely.
More than there's been a decline in people identifying as. But I guess what you're saying is they identify as independent, but they still vote Democrat.
Well, yes. Let me put it to you this way.
Help me out here.
Okay, you can be independent, but you can sway either way.
Right.
All right. So, I'm an independent, but I tend to sway more to the Democratic side of my vote because their argument kind of appeals to me as a member of academia.
And in some ways, is it the lesser of the two evils? But go ahead.
Well, in some ways, it could be. It really depends on the argument. All right. But as a historian, as an member of academia, I look at it as resources in America are not equally distributed. So the Republican argument doesn't hold water with me. But then on the other side of the ledger, you can have an independent that leans more Republican, and so those particular arguments will hold water. So they tend to vote in that direction. Right. That's where I'm going.
I get that, but then help me out here, gentlemen, because where I guess I'm trying to wrap my brain around it is your reasoning makes sense, but I can get elected if I'm as a Republican with a 9%, but there's a 61% margin of independents out there that if I ran as an independent, I can't get elected, but at a 9% Republican population, I can.
This question: how often do you see, and this makes a difference? How often do you see when you see a politician speaking on CNN, Fox News, whatever? How often do you see the name and then in the little bracket I or D or
unless it's Bernie Sanders or whatever.
That's it. Right. Because what you see, the message you're sending folks is we only have a two-party society.
Right.
So I got to go either way. So when they hear independent, they're turned off from the I because that's not a legitimate party. That's someone's fictitious or that's someone's imagination about a party. It's not a legitimate party.
Right.
It means that you're not taking a stand. You're standing between the two.
Okay.
This is why I say that if some people will lean more towards Republican than
right. And I guess it's a little confusing for me, and probably is that because these numbers say that it's the right time for an independent at 61%, and yet I don't have a snowball's chance of getting elected as an independent, but at a 9%, as a Republican, I can be elected statewide as governor.
It's the recognition again, and the human brain's always looking for the easiest way out, the easiest way to function, to kind of comprehend and make sense of the world. So they're familiar with the Democrat, they're familiar with the Republican, and that's what.
I
get that, but I'm saying,
I hear what you're saying.
Right? It's just
the numbers say that you should be able to actually have an independent, and in actuality, you probably do have independents. I won't say probably. You do have independents representing folks in various parts of government in the House of Representatives, at state level and at the federal level. But they tend not to run for a whole office, major office with that title, because we're not conditioned for that.
But I guess again, it just boggles my mind that you would go and identify yourself as something and not support what you're.
The system also, the way it's set up, where it kind of is like setting it up where it's only a two-party system. We definitely need more representation. Like when South Africa had its first election after Nelson Mandela came out, there were like something like 36 parties, 36 choices, and they were all legitimate parties that you could pick from. Okay. And in here, it's like no matter what, it always comes down to 2, maybe 3. We've had like one independent candidate for president, like Ross Perot, in our lifetime. But how many? And then again, he was a billionaire. Yeah. Okay, so
I believe, and this is Dr. Bradley speaking. This is my prediction, that you will see within the next 10 to 15 years a very permanent, well-liked independent candidate that can possibly hold office. I think that party is growing. Yes. I think it's growing in the consciousness of America.
Amen.
Right now, in the consciousness of America, you have Democrats and Republicans, but I think you have this huge hue and cry for a third party, because neither one of those parties have done what they're supposed to do. And people are saying, look at the clown show in Washington today at the Republican Party. You know what I mean? And I'm telling you right now, that wasn't too far off when the Democrats had the House. It wasn't too far off. It's just that Nancy Pelosi had the necessary, experience to kind of corral those people. But I think you have this huge push for an independent party and other parties, because I think right now we have a two-party government, and neither platform is actually subscribing to all people.
617-282-0685 617-282-0685. Listen at the round table with MAMLEO. How you voted? Because it says 61% of the people from Commonwealth are independent voters. Are you independent? Are you Democrat? Are you Republican?
Is that voter suppression? If 61% of us are trying to be independent, and we can't even register as independent?
Well, it says that you are registered as independent. That has been the shift from Democrat, mainly from the Democrat Party, because Massachusetts has pretty much always been a blue state. But the independent, I guess again, I'm just looking at this, trying to conflate to where there's a disconnect where that someone, if we know realistically, ran as an independent, would not be elected. They'd have to have a D or an R beside their name. And yet, according to this, 9% of the people in the state register as Republican. But yet it's more likely that you could be elected as a Republican at 9% than 61% of the independent voters to support someone who had an I beside an identification that people say that they're connected to. That's the part that I'm trying to...
Democracy needs work. That's what that means.
I don't disagree with that, but it's like, are we selling something that's not for sale?
Well, actually, I think also the other side of it is that what is the platform for the independent as opposed to the platform for the Democrats or the Republicans? Some people vote for platforms.
Okay.
You know, I mean, when I vote, I tend to lean, again, more Democratic because I like the platform of the distribution of resources. That's the main, you know, because I think, it's nice to say, well, you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but when you have taken the boot.
Well, you don't have any boots.
You got no straps either.
Right.
You got socks.
I don't really, so I really don't subscribe to what the Republicans are saying because we know the resources not just.
Well, and also, it's so funny how they always can say you can do things on your own, but when it comes down to like providing assistance to corporations, they never have a problem giving banks a bailout.
There's always a bailout, right.
Like when it comes to
you don't even get bail money.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, see, that's what I mean by the platform is that they're really gearing their resources towards maintaining corporations, the status quo of the rich, whereas the Democrat looked more to the poor and more the liberal. So, but even in that argument, they have not been really truthful in actually doing what they need to do for the people.
So then, gentlemen, how do we get folks to be engaged politically? You teach public policy, you know, your PhD in public policy, you teach different aspects at colleges. But I guess because I think folks have figured out, until now it starts to become more real with this kind of radical Republican Party, is that no matter who has been in office, if I'm receiving some type of government, because you know, once the government funds something, whatever, it's almost like you know it just becomes part of funding, right? These are things that have to be funded, and it's only until they start to realize that these folks are now looking to go after that, because you figured, well, guess what? People told me to be scared of Republicans being in the White House, and yet my government check still kept coming, right? So I don't need to vote at all because it doesn't affect me personally.
Well, brother, I tell you, I'm sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, well, the one thing I think that's going to be the Achilles heel of the Republican Party is the fact that they've gone after abortion rights. And I think that's one of the things that they might miscalculate.
With women, we've seen that.
Because a lot of states where they're Republican and they put it out to the people to vote, the people are voting to keep abortion legal.
Right.
So it's not. Obviously, the people are speaking. But
I think it said they were saying like the Republicans, you know, the dog that caught the car, they caught.
It was much more powerful than he thought it was.
Right.
But my point. Say that again. I didn't.
The dog that caught the car.
You know, the dog is always chasing the car. And because he never catches it, and then all of a sudden you bite it and you realize
it's not as easy as I thought. Oh dear, it was fast.
Keep running. And the analogy what Dr. Belly says is that they have always been pushing to get the Supreme Court to overturn it, knowing that it most likely wasn't going to happen. But they could highly be seeing like they're advocating for it, right? I'm in your corner, and now that it caught the car,
and now it's backfiring on them.
Exactly, because most people were like, well, you know, they can. So that's not an issue. I'm not going to hold it against them because they say it. But now it's actually happened. They were running. I thought it would be popular. Now they realize it's not. Yeah. So you don't even hear Republicans really even talking about it.
And I think the Democrats, that's what they should harp on.
They're running on.
That's what they exactly should harp on.
Yeah, I think they have really alienated that demographics. But what I was going to say is that because you were hopping on the money, the dependent check coming into the welfare system, But I, you know, and this is just me speaking, just looking forward for the next 10 to 15 years. I think with AI, there will be universal income for all people.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that there will be no jobs, and everybody will have get money from the president, from the government. Because
how do you support that?
I think that
somebody has to pay the bill. Right?
I think you will support that through robotics. You'll support that through AI. Think of it this way. Think of, you know, when I was a young boy back in the 20th century, I used to go to various places, and when they have elevators, they had an individual who will operate the door. You don't see that today.
No.
AI took that away. When I was a young boy, I would dial 0 and I get an operator to be switched. Information. You don't see that anymore. Right. AI took that away. When I was a young boy, I used to travel with my daddy and my uncles going down west in Massachusetts, and used to go to the toll booth, and you had to collect. You don't see that anymore. AI took that away. Now, individuals were...
And speaking of your travel, I'm just going to throw this in there. You used to have to buy those maps if you were going out of state. Exactly. Right now, you can...
So AI took that away. All right? So... those individuals who occupied those jobs was trained in something else. All right, and then they're doing other jobs. Well, what happens now if AI takes over all the jobs?
That's what I was going.
How do you now reach?
Right.
How do you train?
Well,
how do you teach? Even in my level, when I'm teaching at a college, but AI is doing that. So how do you retrain me? So there's no jobs to be retrained for, and that's why I predict that you may have universal
but then it goes to then how do you pay for all? Because usually with those jobs, the government, the only thing they do is how they make money is from taxes, right? So if you have all of these and no one is providing any revenue, because machines don't pay taxes.
But let's define what revenue is, though. Revenue as today may be the revenue that supported the 20th century economy, but the revenue for the 21st century may be bitcoins. It may be something of other values.
No, I get that, John. But I guess what I'm trying to understand here is that I have a grocery store, even if it's run by AI. I still, how do I make a profit if you have, if you're even the government, right, and you're running a deficit, which we always are, what's the return or the exchange for me for my services or my products?
It'll be compensation of whatever we value at that particular time. We call money, because I'm still getting
more like a bartering. So then
you could be that, or I'm still getting universal pay. Money is still flowing through the economy. I'm just not working for it as an individual. The robots are. So when I go to the store, I'm still giving that robot $1. I'm still getting a robot.
But where's the dollar? Okay, so you're still saying that the government is still taking money in, but you have less money that you're taking.
America prints its own money, Doc.
Right, but I guess again,
it doesn't. We don't have to go.
If I've taken away 90% of the workforce, because I'm saying I don't think people would ever be comfortable with. I mean, even now where they have these robotic cars, and we're seeing some of the problems with that because there's no human in there. I don't see in the law enforcement profession. So, but let's just say we replace 90%. That was a big thing with this big holdout with the writers and the screen actors, right? Because AI is replacing a lot of them, and you don't even know it's happening. But in some cases, you won't be able to do that. So that 90% of the people you're replacing a tax income from, how are we replacing that with AI?
We're replacing that with AI because AI will be consuming all employment.
Okay.
All of it, and so what you're doing, my friend, which is what the typical American would do, they'll try to take this new set and use the current framework and put it into the current framework. What I'm trying to say to you is that they're going to reconfigure the whole thing. Okay. The current framework that we have today will not be applicable to what they're doing in the 21st century later on. All right. So when we're thinking about compensation so they built the current economical system to deal with the issues that we were dealing with in the 21st and the 20th and 19th century. But what I'm saying to you is that they're going to eradicate that whole piece. And AI now is going to be the foundation by which economy is predicated on. And people like you and I, the organic being, will just be sitting back and doing other things with our lives, not working for an organization, because AI will be taking those jobs.
So this is paramount to a 21st century of automation when the assembly line came in and we saw less need for as many workers. It's not going to be a complete, but you're going to see a large chunk that we're seeing in areas where robotics and AI can replace the human being.
And because what's happening now, watch this. When Massachusetts, at one point Massachusetts was a very heavily agricultural society. Industrialization, all it means is using machines to create what was once created by hands.
Right.
Now we're using machines to do that. So what also shifted was the criminality associated with that. But every time you make a change, the criminality is going to change as well. The method of committing crime is what I mean by that. So when you had an industrial, agricultural society, the crime was still in livestock. I kill you for a horse.
Well, to your crime analogy, because I was saying to my wife last night, and I was saying, you notice, and I don't know if you guys pay attention to it, because when we talk about crime, it just made me think about it. There are less armed robberies taking place in the cities, and do you know why?
What?
More cameras.
No. Technology.
What part? What? No.
Computer technology.
No.
You don't have to worry about leaving your home now. You don't have to worry about pulling it up on somebody. You can do it on the computer.
No, not just that. And because I'm like, wait, I said
cybercrime?
No. How much cash is in the store now?
That's it. That's technology,
right? Yeah. So most people are not paying by cash. You went in the store to get cash. If I go in there and take the receipt,
you got nothing.
The invoice for the charges.
That's my point.
Right.
Technology.
Right. There's very little cash in these businesses anymore.
I don't carry cash.
Right.
I don't carry it. I have my card,
right.
and I'm very judicious as to how I keep away from my wife. By the way, I hope she's not listening. But anyway, but
call it.
But that's the point, So you're going to see this shift,
right?
And as a police officer, a retired cop, and as an academic in this area, you're also going to get a shift in criminality,
right? Cybercrime,
right? Now because I said a criminal going in and rob the store now, he may have more cash in his pocket than the guy has on hand. You're going to get a shift in the method of carrying out crime. It happened in every time we shift throughout the world. We went from agricultural to industrialized to informational. Every time we make that shift, you also have a shift in the method by which you carry out crime.
And I'd just like to bring out the caveat that you mentioned from the telephone operator, the elevator operator,
operator.
But here's the thing. Notice that with all those jobs, when technology was ready to replace those jobs, it was at that point, that's when they had hired minorities to be there.
Yeah, I remember calling the time lady. Temperature 36. At the tone, the time will be 9:31.
Call it now and see what happens.
There was nothing, right?
Not there. You're going to get a blank signal. And so that's just. But we call it progress. But I really see that the whole construct that we now call the economy is going to be turned upside down, and AI is going to be. I can see it coming even in college. I was actually doing a lecture the other day at one of the schools, and I looked out of the window. I saw this little thing rolling down the road. I was like, "What?" I said to one of my students, "What is that?" And he said, "Well, Dr. Bradley, that's a delivery bot." A delivery bot,
like the ones they have in the grocery store going down the aisles. Or is this a car?
It was a little bot that someone had ordered food. They stuck it into the bot, and the bot delivered it to the caller.
Oh wow!
As opposed to a human being taking it over, and saying, "Okay, they have done all the transaction over the card.
Right.
No tip.
They put the sandwich in. The robot goes up to the dorm, and the robot, sends a signal to the phone and say, "I'm outside. Come get your food."
Wow.
And I'm like, are you kidding me?
I'm so far behind.
I felt like I was in George Jackson or something.
Right. Well, it's funny you say that because you think about back then, that seemed like it was so far away, right?
But it's a reality.
Right.
The reality is that the technology does exist. It's just that the powers that be refuse to allow all the technologies that are available to actually come to fruition.
I'm just sitting here thinking of all the things that we used to get, like the phone book every year, right? They would, and these things
Google.
that just. But I think the sad part because what you were saying, Dr. Bradley, is like we saw these things go away, and maybe because they didn't affect us personally, or there was something that replaced it that was honestly more efficient, right? Because I remember when I got my GPS for my car, I was like, oh, finally I don't have to be stopping and asking for directions, right? And now I don't, the cars, there's unless you have an old car, that you can find a car that doesn't have GPS navigation in it. That used to be an upgrade in the car. Now it's standard, right? Because someone was saying that they're doing away with there'll be no more AM radio.
No, there'll be no more AM radio. Yeah, that's what I heard.
I thought there was some sort of reason why, because of emergency frequency or something like that, they're supposed to try to keep it along.
No, everyone have an FM. So.
All I can tell you is that we're on the precipice of a significant change in how we're actually
seismic.
How we're living in America, in the world.
Wow.
And AI is going to play a much more prevalent role in our quality of life.
Wow.
And I really see AI. That's why I always tell folks, you're going to invest. That's what you want to invest in. I see AI really actually taking over a lot of the jobs that we used to have.
We've got to travel down memory while we're finishing up this broadcast, because Dr. Bradley, we're going to continue to talk about this in the politics, but 617-282-0685, 617-282-0685. What did you grow up think, and now it's no longer there, things that were kind of staples, in your life. Is Dr. Bradley really I'm like, wow, these are things that my kids will never.
Don't have to worry about it. In fact, your kids would probably not, and my grandkids will probably not require a driver license. Will never learn how to drive. Have to worry about driving. You know, they will look at that as an old skill set.
Right.
That's
like the horse and buggy.
It's gonna go away like cursive writing in school. You know what I mean?
It's like a secret language to kids now, because a lot of kids can't even read cursive.
They can't read cursive. You know what I mean? And that's a driver license will not be required.
Right.
You know, it'll be more of an ID
card,
as opposed to a driver license, because your cars will not need a human being to interact with.
Yeah.
There was something I read recently, and you guys are scaring me beyond scare, where people are having chips implanted in there, so they don't even need their cards and stuff.
Yes, sir.
No, I just want to weigh in because what Dr. Bradley's saying is right on point. In fact, it's Bible prophecy. If you read the Bible, it says this is happening.
That's where I'm going.
They get
Go
rid of
for
money.
it.
No, you go.
No. I mean, it's Bible prophecy coming to fulfillment. The wonderful thing about the word is, if you read the word, it tells you, it's prophetic. If you read the newspaper, that's reactive.
Yes.
The Bible is actually prophetic, and it tells you what's forthcoming. And it talks about a one world banking system and a cashless society.
New world order.
And this chip that you'll have in your hand
It's
that
the mark
you'll
of the
neither
beast.
be able to buy nor sell
without
unless you take this chip. Right? So in your forehead and in your hand, we're being sensitized to be able, when we go, everything is electronic. And to make it easier,
No cash.
you don't have to carry your wallet.
Right.
And we're all about convenience. It's acclimating us for convenience.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I'm going home and I'm never coming out.
That's not the answer either. They'll come to there. The truth of the matter is surveillance and everything else. The truth of the matter is really, and I love that this is we're talking about current events, and this is in the church, because it's not a religious thing. The truth of the matter is that's a big piece.
No, it's scary because, your phones, they all computer. You talk about something and then all of a sudden it's on your search. I'm like, wait a minute, I was just talking. Right. So, it's really scary. Like, I leave the phone someplace outside of my bedroom because I don't know if somebody's watching me sleep.
I was talking to my sister. I was talking to my older sister last night, and we were talking about this, kind of touched on this issue. And I was explaining to her that I was talking to my wife about a particular type of golf ball that I like to play. It's a new golf ball by TaylorMade, and I really like the golf ball. I usually hit Titleist, but now I'm going to go over to this ball. And so my wife was like, well, you're going to pay that kind of money? I was like, well, you know what? I don't really do much. And the next thing I knew, I'm getting ads for the golf ball.
Wow.
And then it dawned on me that the phone was listening to the conversation. So I'm like, man, so if I was getting personal, you know what I mean?
Right.
People know my stuff. So you have.
So we're gonna be getting calls from the mayor's office.
It's interesting. The sad thing about it is we talk about personal, and the truth of the matter is there is no personal.
No, it's not.
Everything we say, everything we do is captured in a cloud. Is captured algorithms and there's another whole level of surveillance.
Even if you do DuckDuckGo or you don't sign in and you go in anonymously, it's still tracked.
Delete whatever. It's there.
No, I was talking to an IT guy and he's like going and he was showing me through Wi-Fi he can actually see everyone's passwords, because he can go, he says, no matter what, because he's the tech guy behind the scene, he can see your password.
No, it's like you think about it when when you go. Most employers now, they have a card you scan. You don't even have to take it out of your wallet. And so that's a way of tracking who's coming. Where before I could go into work and
punch me in right in the
not
clock.
even a punch. Most of the time, there was a code, but it was the same code for everyone, so you couldn't distinguish who came in. Now they know if you came in, what time you came in.
Well, I mean, the idea, and people don't really think about this, but the idea around databases, and some of these databases will appear to be innocuous. Like, for instance, when I spit it into a cup and send off to
the
lab for to find out
DNA,
who I am,
right, genealogy,
all that stuff is going to various databases around the world.
Yeah.
When you take a picture, like my wife and I signed up for Clear, so we can get through the line very quickly. Well, that's a database that when I now go in and I buy something, it checks all these different databases electronically without even any intervention, any involvement with a human being. The system does it. You know, there were a couple of robots. I think it was YouTube or one of these, or maybe Google created 2 robots that were talking. They start to talk in their own language,
and that's why they just shut them down. Because their AI got more advanced than they thought it
was going to get.
Yeah.
So they start talking to each other. They were like, whoa, and they shut them down. You know, so what I'm saying to you, brother, is that this is not too far off.
Yeah.
This is going to be in our lifetime.
Yeah.
We will have cars that we can sit in and say, well, take me to Atlanta.
Yeah,
and bam, we're going.
Yeah,
and we don't have to interact with it at all. And so that's why I say you're not going to have licenses.
Yeah, the kids don't need licenses because you talk to kids and I don't have a license. They're like, no, I Uber and Lyft. I was like, are you serious? They're like, no, like they don't even get the like when you were 16, you couldn't wait to get your license.
Your learner's permit. Right?
No, they just want the phone. They're like, Mom, Dad, I want the app.
That's right.
That's literally what they want.
When we took Jada to school in University of New Haven,
just blown away.
You know what I mean? And you listen to this, brother. You're coming to this, all right? And I'm like, okay, this is the last one. I have 5 kids. This is the last one. We're done. My wife and I are going to be able to. So I'm saying to her, honey, what do you need? You know, and she was going to all this stuff. I said, what about the TV? She was like, TV? Dad, I don't use a TV. I was like, but wait a second. You want a nice flat screen? She goes, I got it on my computer. All I need is one little projector. I can project it, everything I want to see. That way I don't have to worry about commercials. And I was like, oh, okay. The mindset is entirely different. This is why I say to you is like, when you think about AI, don't take the current construct that we're dealing with today and try to fit it into that. They're going to redesign the whole thing.
Wow.
The whole thing is going to be redesigned.
You can actually, you talk about, you literally your fingerprint, right? Eye recognition. You ain't even got to just look. Your eye.
Right.
Yeah. That's you. You know what I'm saying? And things open, close, whatever.
But in China, they actually have a merit system based on facial recognition.
A marriage system?
A merit system.
Oh, merit. Okay.
So, literally, if you're a good person or whatever, they give you better credit or what have you. But, if you're a jaywalker, they monitor you for jaywalking, for spitting on the ground, things of that nature. But, again, their AI is that advanced where it literally is tracking you.
That is scary.
Oh yeah, it's very scary. I mean, when we went into Clear, I'm saying to this little white woman, I'm like, listen, you can't, this thing is not good enough to look at all this, look at this juicy blackness. You know what I mean? And I love this because it's a token of my people's ability to be resilient. Although you try to destroy me, but we keep coming back. You know what I mean? So I love that about me. You won't be able to identify this. She goes, we're not looking at your beautiful blackness, we're looking at your eyes.
Oh, wow.
I was like, oh, dear. I never thought of it that way. Yeah. She's like, we're actually targeting your eyes. And then we'll look at your eyes, and we'll determine based on this algorithm, and we'll bring you up real quickly. And sure enough, bam, every time, bam, it comes right up. It's an entirely different piece of technology, Doc.
This reminds me of Lost in Space when the robot would say, danger, 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 danger.
Well, danger, Will Robinson, danger. You going way back,
right? That's what I'm saying. And what's even more scary is that whether you want to, normally you can opt out of something. It doesn't seem like there's any choice here. You are just going to be dragged along. Like Pastor Hobbs says, if you don't, you can't even survive. You can't exist.
You can live off the grid. There are people that are trying to be independent farmers.
I'm not going to Alaska with it.
No.
40 below.
That's the thing.
Sound like my wife.
There's a documentary called "The Illusion of Democracy," and basically they don't show you this on the news, but they were showing you people that got raided because they were providing people non-pasteurized milk, and they're trying to be completely no GMO, all organic and everything like that, and they're making that he said big corporate, big pharma refuses to let that to be legal. They made it illegal now to be an independent.
So listen to what you just said. In one breath you said, oh, you can live off the grid. Then you're saying, oh, you can't do this because they're making these things illegal.
Exactly.
So one is contradicting the other. You're not going to be able to live off the grid because there's not going to be no such thing.
Because they're making it illegal.
That's
You can technically live off the grid, but they're not. They're making it illegal for you.
Because that's the point. As they're making things, and that's going to progress. This is what I'm telling you prophetically. As things become, it's going to be illegal to live off the grid.
Right.
You're saying the same thing.
There's a mom and pop's store on down the street from me that
Not for
sells,
long.
right, and it's a little almost no bigger. It's probably smaller than this, and I see that they have non-pasteurized milk and all that. And I went in there one day, just everything in there is supposed to be organic.
Yeah.
And I'm saying to myself, okay, what does? Because I was scared. I'm like, do I want to try this milk if it's not been pasteurized? How am I gonna, is it going to kill me because it's coming straight from the cow and there's things that probably should be, but that's I've been conditioned that if it's not this way, that may be harmful. In actuality, it may be more harmful the way I'm used to.
Like, you know, in France, they don't put the milk in the refrigerator. They literally just put it in the cupboard because they don't pasteurize the milk. Although Louis Pasteur, the Frenchman that invented it, go to France, try to drink some pasteurized milk.
What is the difference? Like I said, this is my ignorance. So what is the difference between, I know pasteurized is this process, but what is non-pasteurized milk?
Means that they didn't heat it up and cool it down.
Not heat. Heat up
to kill the bacteria.
Yeah, it kills the bacteria.
So you basically, the bacteria, it's like there's...
Whatever the cow has, you eat, you're consuming.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, like a lot of the medical...
You look like you got lockjaw.
I do?
You had some milk. So I don't want to milk mustache. No more milk mustaches. Wow, this is...
Yeah, but the reality is that it's all about conditioning, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's why it's going incrementally. It's not all at one point. And think about it. At one point, you had a full phone booth.
Right.
All right. Complete phone booth.
Yeah.
Superman was jumping the phone booth and he was changed. Then he came back. It was only half of a phone booth. All right. And then he came back. There was no phone booth.
Right. And the rotary.
So, and then there was no rotary. And then the next thing you know, you had variations of this guy. And then you had the big recorders, but now everybody got it on the phone. So everything is done incrementally, and as a part of that incremental change, conditioning is happening simultaneously.
And let me tell you why you guys are scaring me, because even more so, like last week, my daughters, thank goodness, they're avid readers. The oldest one, the little one's, she's still learning, but the oldest one, she reads. She'll go through 9 books in a week.
Beautiful.
And I'm not talking about little books.
No, encourage her and keep her.
Absolutely.
Always praise her for doing that.
No, I do.
I want a book report and give Daddy book reports.
I go to the library with her. We're sitting there and we're encouraging. And we were there last Saturday to get some more books in the library, and like they had a cart there with all of these free.
Yeah, they got to throw out the books.
Not books, the DVDs.
Because nobody had DVDs anymore.
And I'm like, and so, and I'm looking, I'm like, free DVDs. And then I thought, I'm like, wow, we don't even have a DVD player in the house, right? So it dawned on me that, remember when they first came out, you had a DVD player, and then when you got one in your car, you would really, and then when you had a multi-disc CD player in your car, you would hit you were the thing. And I'm saying, wow, they're giving this away.
Yeah, I have one in my car. I don't even use it.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at this gentleman, and I'm like, even all these, there must have been about 100 of them there, right? And I still took some because I'm like, well, maybe I'll find something, because I couldn't wrap my brain around. And then I was trying to give them away this. They're like, well, what are we going to do? We don't have a DVD player. I mean, I was trying to give them this. I said, well, maybe no one has a DVD player. If they do, it's somewhere collecting dust.
Well, think about the 8-track and the remember the 8-track
and the cassette player.
Remember the cassette player?
Yeah.
I mean, we have a place in Curry College where they have this display right outside of the media room of all the old technology.
Like the Smithsonian, right?
Yeah. It's really a Smithsonian cabinet. Well, I took my wife and I and a couple other police officers went there for a discussion board. We all stopped at this thing, Gloria Kincaid being one of them, and we were like, that's the technology of our youth. It's now in the Smithsonian, Blackberries, and all these different kind of, these different the brick phones,
pagers, right?
Pagers, all that stuff. It was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm so old. But that's the reality. It's happening very quickly.
Right.
I was going to say, again, the Bible says, right, heaven and earth will pass away, but God's word right, will remain forever. So, and this thing that's with this constant change and this conditioning that Dr. Bradley's talking about that we can see in this. So, but the point is, what's not being conditioned, even as people, there's a great exodus of the church. We had a conversation last week. These institutions and buildings they're no longer here, right? And we said it's not about a building, but about relationship, right? And it's not about in being perfect, because we're all imperfect, but with a perfect God. So we see things that happen like 9/11 and different tragic things that happen, shootings and so forth, and there's this big rush to the building, and then as soon as it subsides and people go right back to, but again, as this stuff is happening, I'm just saying that it's really important that people really understand the urgency of reading Revelation. This is, yes, I know it's a talk show, but a part of that talk is about the reality. Real talk. I love that we're talking about real talk, real issues, and it's not, the hope is not in any political system, because they're all made by man.
Well, it's funny because I don't know if you guys remember when I said this, and you probably, I don't know if you remember when I asked you when I was working in the drug unit back then, and it was really kind of high tech. We had pagers, but we had the Nextel phones, and I remember when I got my phone, went to go pick it up from there, and I asked the guy, what does Nextel stand for? And he told me. Did you guys know what Nextel, when it first came out with it?
Next technology.
No.
I don't recall that.
It stood for, he said, next telephone. Nextel, that's what it meant. I'm like, what do you mean by that? He says, by the early 90s, no one will have a house phone. I said, man, you done lost your mind. Right? I said, you done lost your mind.
No, even if they do have a house phone, it's still internet based.
No, I told them, you done lost your mind, because people are not going to give away their phones in their house. They're just not going to do that and have a phone that's wide. They're not going to do that. That will never happen. And fast forward, sure enough, you start seeing it. But what's even more interesting, because I do construction, right? And when I bought my current house, it's a newer house. And what struck me, I'm walking around and I'm like, no jacks. So my mom, when she was still alive, she still was for the school of, she wanted a hardline phone. So we had to pay someone to come in and run a wiring for a jack in the house. And when I called the phone company to want to put, they're like, huh?
We don't do that anymore.
When's the last time you saw someone up on the pole? Right? A phone guy, right? A truck along the side of the road, right? And so these are all, while we're having this conversation, I'm just going back down things that kind of went and by the wayside. No fanfare, and we didn't pay any attention to it.
All we do is get the net result of it is the phone itself. Now, my wife and I have been debating this for the last 10 years over a wired line to our house. And I'm saying, why am I paying for this? And she said, well, I want this because of, we lose electricity on so on and so forth. So make a long story short, we still have it.
Right.
All right?
Because it was part of your upbringing.
Exactly.
Your children will never have
Exactly. But all my calls come through this. I mean, how many people can actually remember a number to one of the individuals that they're calling? I don't know. I mean,
just your house number.
I very seldom know that. I don't know my own number.
But if they do, it's a telemarketer. It's nobody that knows you calls your house.
What I usually do is go to the phone. If I want to call my sister, I press their name. Right. I would press Hattie. I press Lizzie, Anna, whatever I have to do.
To that point, growing up, you knew everybody's number that you needed. Right.
Exactly.
Right. Now
you do the number. Now you have to just know the name.
Right. I was so embarrassed one day. And they asked me for my wife's number.
You know what?
I mean, you used to get in trouble if you didn't remember anniversaries. But the phone number you remembered, right? I couldn't remember my wife's phone number.
My wife asked me her phone number, what her phone number is. I said, wife. It's his wife. I mean, that's what I have your phone is. His wife.
But you made a practice of remembering these numbers in your mind, right? Numbers that you called all the time. And now, like I said, I couldn't tell you what I couldn't tell you what Rhodes. Like you said, it's Rhodes, right? I go and look for the name.
And I just press the button. That's all about. That's the conditioning I'm talking about. That's all the conditioning. So you're making that transition from remembering numbers and associating numbers with people, now associating names, and the names is associated with the number.
And it's making people our memory and those kinds of things. And people in stores, they don't know how to count Big Mac. Push the picture.
Right.
They don't count back. They don't have any idea.
I'm gonna be honest with y'all because the statute of limitations have run out to what you're saying, Pastor. I was in the store one day and I had cash. But I know that stuff people don't use. And the girl and I said, "Oh, wait a minute, I have to change." And she was almost in crisis mode.
Because you have to calculate
She
now.
gave me back $5 too much, and I was like, you know what? And I said, I know, because if this is where we are, it's like Monopoly. Bank error in your favor, collect your $5. I'm leaving out of here with this extra $5.
That was yes. It's literally yes. Same story.
Yeah.
The kid gave me back the change. I was like, wait a second. Do you not understand? I was like, forget it.
I mean,
take my money and leave.
It'll give you more change, more complaint.
Right. Exactly.
Shocked if you come back and be like, excuse me, you gave me $5 too much.
If that button doesn't tell them what to do, because see, I grew up, I worked in my uncle's grocery store.
So did I. I work in the store as well.
They told you how much it was, but then you had to calculate the change. The cash register didn't tell you how much they, and so I'd have to write it down and divide, do the math. But my brain, these kids don't have to think nothing. Push a button, package is delivered.
Well, think about what that does when you're in control of society, though, because it created a constituency that are not used to thinking.
That's right.
And so, if they're not used to thinking, they're not used to challenging. If they're not used to challenging, I have my way. So you have to start thinking about if I actually have people actually depend on technology. I control technology if I control them. You see it?
This is crazy, John. We got a couple of minutes, and you all have scared me, man. I'm not even gonna walk outside. Somebody's got to drive me home.